I guess it's 6 p.m., so we call this meeting to order. Today is August 26, 2026, 6 p.m. This is the Naples and Unified School District Board of Directors meeting, and we're at the central office on Catholic Street. First, I'd like to welcome everyone back. Yesterday was the first day with teachers and students together. Yippee. Agenda review. If you look at your agenda, does anybody have any revisions they would like to request? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any visitors here that wish to address the board? Any visitors online? Okay. Well, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approval of minutes from August 19th, which was a short time ago. Does anyone need to pull those out for discussion? Hearing none, the consent agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is reports to the board. We didn't really expect any students tonight, but it's on the agenda procedure, so we'll pass that. And then there is the board annual work plan, which you have as attachment 6B. It's an updated version. And who wants to speak to that? Bill?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I know they're trying to get the presentation going. We talked last spring about the board annual work plan and talked about how that we might want to look at, instead of monitoring each strategic goal, and looking at our high reliable schools. So I put together this presentation. One is to be a resource for you. It was just easier for me to kind of put that out in a presentation view, and then two, to really kind of get to a question at the end so we can have a discussion about what works best for the board, because I believe the board should say either we stay with a strategic plan as a group or we move to a different system. And then I'll make a calendar, since we meet next week, for you for either, and have that ready to go. So I wanted to I did this, it's also really helped me kind of lay out my thinking and putting this together. So if we can go to the next slide. And Megan, I'm going to have you chime in on your favorite slide. At least, or you can chime in with the other pieces. We've also been doing a lot of this with the whole MRUSD staff and the state. Many of these slides come from the State of Maple Run address, which, Aaron, we should make sure a PDF goes to the board as well, since we sent it to just about everyone else. So here are district goals that were adopted. We're in our 4th year of these goals. I think the 3rd year of our strategic plan. But I'm not going to read them for you, but these should look really familiar at this point. And within those goals, one of the things that Megan really helped us lead us to, so if we go to the next slide, is really looking at our school continuous improvement plans. And one of the things Megan helped bring was really have a lot more voices in that by having the schools build them at the school level. Under COVID, we had gone from before COVID, school continuous improvement plans were done at the school level. And after COVID, we had a different planning cycle that came to us from the Agency of Education. So that really got done at the district level, but not so much at the school level. And now we've gone back to the school level continuous improvement plans. I know, Megan, you did some presentations on that last year to everyone here. So, but I just wanted to remind you of our goals, and some of our real success places are on behavior instances, less than 4 majors. In our SEL surveys, we're seeing we've met those goals. The place that we saw a big increase this past year, not a big increase, but an increase this past year was in attendance. But we're still not meeting that 70% of having 9 or less absences. And in our core academic performance, we're close to 50% on grade level for our English language arts, and our math, as measured by the STAR assessment, has come up quite a bit. And there's going to be a full data wrap up from this past school year here in September. So, and then the early literacy is one that's required now because of Act 139. Was that 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 or 3 years. Yeah,
2 or 3 years ago. And so we keep that, we have that goal at 50%. We have many places, not all, and especially in accuracy for early literacy above 50%. As I said, Megan will give us more of that data in a future meeting. So the highly reliable schools, and Megan did a presentation on this before, but I wanted to remind you of it. It has 5 levels, and it's a taxonomy, so it builds upon each level. That first level being safe and supportive collaborative culture. The second being effective teaching. Guaranteed and viable curriculums, the third, standards reference reporting, and then competency-based progression. But to do well in competency-based progression, as it being a taxonomy, the other ones need to be set at a place. They have to be set stable at a place that we feel like we have a strong foundation. So what we've been using is the 80% when we look at our what's called leading indicators and the data that we get back in these different areas. And the team's been looking at that. The next slide that's with this is just a way of putting it in words instead of having it on the graphic. So there's nothing really more to say with this slide, but I just wanted a different way of, this is what is happening in each of those areas. So if we move on, these are areas that we've been doing a lot of work. Each of these levels, when you see each level, it's an area that we are either doing work or going to be doing more work, and you'll see some of that in a minute. But at level 1, you can see all the areas we've been working on, and a lot of that comes right from our strategic plan. Our strategic plan has a lot of work in level 1. And so, as you know all those areas, the place that's been, a couple that have been really successful for us are the restorative practices, and our PLCs have gotten a big improvement in the past year, so our collaboration amongst our staff. And then Wayfinder implementation, which is our program for SEL, will be fully implemented after this year. So, in level 2, one of the things you'll see on there is an instructional model. One of the things that was really discovered and thought of by the leadership team was that we have to have a clear instruction model about how we talk about instruction. Not just in supervision and evaluation, but every day when we're talking about instruction. So that's going to be a big piece of work this year. Level 3.
Yeah, so level 3 is making sure that we know exactly what we want all students to learn and to what level of rigor, and ensuring that that happens across all of our schools reliably, and making sure that that's aligned to our assessment outcomes. And we've done a ton of work in the last couple of years bringing on common programming, and now we're leveraging something called proficiency scales to really figure out how are we making sure that every moment that we're in the classroom, we're spending it using our programs to ensure that the students learn the things that we have determined through teacher collaborations and research to be the most important and highest leverage skills.
Do you want to do 4 and 5?
Oh, sure. And that kind of culminates a little bit in our aligned report card. So last year we talked about the fact that we were aligned in math and ELA. This year we are aligned in all of our subject areas, including social emotional competencies and all of unified arts. And so every report card in our pre-K through 8 buildings will have the same standards for every single one of the content areas that we are teaching and assessing.
The last one, level 5, that competency-based education, and a lot of work has been done at BFA on that and NCTC with those flexible pathways, but really that idea of kids being able to choose how they want to learn And I was just talking to Jamie Bristol this afternoon at BFA, and she said she's seen a huge increase in the number of students that are looking for a way, either through work-based learning or independent study, to choose a way of how they want to learn to show their proficiency in the different core content areas. So she didn't give me all the numbers, but it was a quick conversation. She's really impressed at how much it's jumped this year. So one of the things that we did this year starting in the spring is we broke up the leadership team into 3 teams that were focusing on level 1, that safe, supportive, collaborative culture, that level 2 of ensuring a high level of instruction in every classroom, and level 3, the guaranteed and viable curriculum. And these are the groupings of folks by the leadership team. And if we were going to report by the highly reliable schools, these would be the folks doing those reports when we were focus on each of those levels. Each HRS team reviewed the data from last year, where there's a whole under high reliable schools, there's a whole leading and lagging indicators, and we were looking at the data we were gathering for that and where are our priorities. Identified a focus for this year and an implementation action plan for this year for what we were doing this summer, and we're working on the fall piece of that now. And so we have benchmarks. I probably should have called them benchmarks instead of goals, but benchmarks for August, September, December, March, and June of where are we going to be as a district. So in level 1, the focus is to, and I'm going to give more detail to each of these 3, but is to build a healing-centered relationships and foster school-wide accountability. Level 2 is to build and gather examples of Maple Run's model of instruction, and then streamline our supervision and evaluation process. A lot of that work was done this summer. And level 3 is that continue to build and implement the guaranteed and viable curriculum. So as we look at the detail of each of these, a restorative code of conduct has been drafted and is in final form, ready to be piloted this year at a school or 2. So that, and for full implementation in the 27-28 school year. So we're in the pilot phase right now of that, and really just trying to have it's that goal that's set at the bottom of both the healing relationships and school-wide accountability. And so that's the piece that we're doing for level 1. We've actually, one of the things that's been great is our handbook is really, our team feels really stable with the MRUSD handbook, which has been a real focus for the past, student family handbook for the past 3 years. Oh, hey, John.
What school?
I don't know right now. I think it might be BFA, but I can't say that I know that that's exact. The model of, one of the things we really looked at a model of instruction. And 4 years ago, we had teachers and administrators come together to do a heavy lift on our supervision and evaluation and look at what is essential. And we looked at, Danielson had a new version of her framework, or update, I shouldn't say a new version, but an update or a revision of her framework came out in 2022. And working with the Danielson group, we said, what are the key components that we need to say that every teacher is doing well in? And I'm deliberately not using her criterion reference levels, I'm just using that. And these are the 6 components out of the 22 that are key. So, I mean, this seems pretty obvious when you start to read them, but what we want to be able to do is capture from, one of the things we were finding we were doing is we were only using this when there was a supervision and evaluation discussion, not when we talk every day about instruction. So we need a common vocabulary and a common way to talk about instruction across the district. So the principals have agreed, and I mean, we all agree as a leadership team that we're going to work on one of these components every month starting here in September. And then by January, we will be through the first 5. And the 4E of growing and developing professionally is something that if you're doing a good job with your supervision and evaluation and you're showing your growth, you're doing that well. So and one of the things we're going to be looking for from our colleagues that are out there working with the kids is where are there examples of this being done really well, so we can spread that and share that and champion that and celebrate that. So that work is really work to be done each month, starting with 1A, knowing and applying knowledge of content and pedagogy, all the way across the rest of those content areas.
And one of the nice things about having a model of instruction is that we can then also look as a leadership team to say, how are we providing professional development opportunities that align with these, so that we can ensure that if we're saying that these are the pieces of instruction that we expect to see in all of our classrooms, that we're also showing explicit connections to the professional learning that we're doing, so that people can say, oh, I really want to be working on fostering a culture of learning. Here's my opportunities within district, as well as being able to look outside of the district. And furthermore, with our PLC menu, we have a whole instructional lane of focus. And so having a model of instruction allows our teachers to say, okay, let's look at our instructional strategies that we're using for this. Let's look at the MRUSD model of instruction. What are we trying? What haven't we tried yet? And what do we want to do as a team to continue to grow students? And so having a model of instruction brings a lot of coherence to other pieces of our system, and it's really exciting to do it in this way, especially looking for those positive examples of practice and celebration. You really want me to do the whole?
Yeah, I really want you to do that.
All the canoes?
Well, you can shorten it a little bit. Megan gets a little excited about that.
I do. Well, one of the reasons you hired me is because I really like curriculum and instruction. And as we've been talking about the guaranteed and viable curriculum, we realized that, again, we didn't have a common language or a common idea of what we mean when we say guaranteed and viable curriculum. We have some people who say, oh, it's the standards. We have some people who say, oh, it's our program amplifier, our program Imagine Learning. And there's more to it than that. And so I was trying to figure out a way that when we're talking about guaranteed and viable curriculum, people could have an image that flashes in their head. And so now we have canoes. Because it can be a little bit of a dry subject. But we spent last year with about, I would say, 60 to 70 educators working in curriculum committees, really understanding what do we mean when we say guaranteed and viable curriculum, and doing work that is going to ensure that we have one. So when I explain this image, there's multiple aspects of guaranteed and viable curriculum, starting with our report card standards. And so you've heard about our aligning report card work. And so we say this is the most essential learning for our students, and we establish success criteria. And this is what it looks like to be proficient. But just like with a canoe frame, if you were to put a canoe frame into a lake, it would sink. Standards and success criteria alone are not going to be enough for us to have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So what else do we need? We need instructional materials that wrap around that frame so that we can float. And so we have brought on consistent programs. We've worked on aligning things so that we have the instructional materials that allow us to travel along a course of study. But that also is not enough, because if you have ever seen a canoe on a lake when it's not tethered to anything, it's just kind of going all over the place. So what we need is professionals who are able to be in there to steer and course correct and respond to the headwinds, or respond to the students in front of them, because our instructional materials are not meant to be picture perfect for the students in front of us. We need educators to do that. So while we provide the frame, we say this is what we're striving for, and the materials, these are the things that we commonly agree to use in order to help students get there. We need educators focusing on our model of instruction, the data that they collect, and the kids, and what they know of the kids in front of them, to make sure that kids achieve what we're hoping for them to achieve. And still, that doesn't quite get fully to guaranteed and viable curriculum, because when we talk about guaranteed, we're talking about a common promise and commitment to one another, to our students, and to our community, that when we say this is what you learn in third grade, you learn that in third grade. And we focus all of our multi-tiered systems of supports around that, our instructional time, and focus on that, so that across MRUSD, we're building background knowledge. If we say it's happening in third grade, it's being taught, it's being assessed, and it's being spiraled, so that kids have that as their background knowledge going into the next grade level. And that really takes all of us growing together. because we need to have a common understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and working together to say what are the most effective strategies for the kids we have in our classrooms at this time. And that's where PLCs come in too. And then ultimately we're doing this because we want all of our students in their own canoes there using their own tools and resources and being equipped with the knowledge and skills that they need to chart their pathway towards their future aspirations while we kind of guide on the side. So that's guaranteed and viable curriculum in canoes. And you'll definitely hear more about this, but it's been helpful to help people understand that it's not just our standards, it's not just our programs, and core to what we do is the educator and the decisions that they make with their children and with their colleagues to ensure that all of our students can achieve success.
Is this canoe idea your brainchild?
Whoa.
Well, my brainchild and some AI, right? Like I had an idea, but I couldn't draw this. I said, this is how I want to explain it. Please create an image. And then I worked my little narrative around it a bit.
Great. Thank you.
So what I did was go through the strategic plan and pull out all the evidence that's required in a strategic plan and started to crosswalk it with the HRS levels. And so when you look at a lot of that data that we have around the rigorous academics and expectations, a lot of that we were doing in academic reporting. You saw that last year in academic. We do it 3 times a year. We'd usually do it in September, somewhere in the February time period, and then usually somewhere in June. And then you'll see, I won't go down through all these, but you'll see on this page, you see most of them, the 2 at the bottom about the constant policies and behaviors are HRS level 1. And then the supervision and evaluation system for all teachers is level 2. And a clear articulated curriculum that Megan just spoke of with her canoe analogy is level 3. Then going to the next set of the last 3 goals, you will see that a lot of the support services are all level 1. The opportunities for family and community engagement is not part of the high reliable school model, so I left that blank. And then the community education action on inclusion, a lot of that, the perception data is included in HRS level 1, and then the audit of how are we assessing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've been doing that in our academic reporting when we break it out by subgroups for you. So I wanted you to see this and kind of see how, this was kind of like how I was trying to take my thinking and put it on paper for the board. And then I also put up here quickly, because someone on the board said, hey, let's make sure we have it so you have the time to get the data processed. So Megan and I sat down and said, what are the data dates, and how long does it take to analyze it, and then when would be the next board meeting after that analysis. So you'll see that on 2 pages. And I would take all of this, whether it was our traditional, what we have been doing, which is 2 reports by goal, or if we move to the high reliable school model, along with probably some augmentation, I would take this and build out a calendar for you. But my last one is really my essential question, which is last year our reports included both quantitative and qualitative data along with statements from students, staff, families, and community members. It appeared to me what resonated most with you as a board was not either the qualitative or quantitative data, but the statements you were seeing from our community. That's when I saw the board be most active. No judgment on that, that's just what I saw. And then so my first question, is that correct? And then, because that helps us build what you want to see as reports. Not that we would say pull away the qualitative and quantitative, but it might give us more areas to stress. And then, if so, each HRS level team would present twice a year. We'd also have the 3 academic and behavior reports. You see there wasn't any HRS level on community engagement, so maybe we have to figure that out. And I would build a reporting schedule and have that for next week. Or I could take what we did this past year, change it a little bit to meet that assessment schedule you saw and keep with the goals. And I think this is, for me, this is a board decision because it's about your role of monitoring and which way you'd like to go as a board. So I leave that with, those are some of my questions. And I need some input before I do much more work. It's not a lot of work to get to the next step, it's just kind of knowing which direction to go. So.
And the first thing that comes to my mind is that I don't know that I would feel the same way about every goal, Bill, in terms of the data.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, talk to me. Talk to me what you're
I mean,
thinking.
I think that I might feel one way about statements for, I don't know, one of the goals, but then I might want data, quantitative data for another one, is all that I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's, that I would feel comfortable saying cross the line, I'm fine with just statements, because I think that data is important for some of the information.
So that's fine to me. It's not like it's an all or nothing, but I need to,
I hear you.
I need to know.
Yep.
I need to know from the board what you want, basically.
Yeah, I prefer the data. I mean, the statements are nice, but it's easier to like kind of cherry pick statements than it is to look at the actual data and see where things are changing. So I think a combination of both is good.
I think a combination of both too. I remember last year, Christina Balzanot and John Bracco did one with data and that one I think was really nice to see the data kind of support what the statements were saying. And so something with that hybrid model would be really great because data can be dry and it becomes very numeric and it's not like people were affecting. And so having the statements makes it kind of more personal. That's what we're working with people. And so having, I think, a mesh of both, and that's a presentation that I think you're talking about when we really like lit up. And so I really appreciated that one because it was very data driven with a lot of anecdotes within it and stories and stuff like that. So something like that kind of hybrid I think would be really good for us.
Yep.
Anyone else?
I think
Go ahead.
also for myself, I'm personally not interested in just all of the positive growth. I feel like it would be helpful for us to hear where we are, where we want to go, what work we still think we need to do, right?
Well, that's how we should look at each of them.
Absolutely, but I don't know that in the reports that we get that we talk about what still needs to be done. I think we talk about, sometimes, I think we focus heavily on improvements, which is awesome, and it's great to celebrate improvements. And it's also important to know, are we making progress from whenever the last time that we looked at this data? You know, so making sure that we're looking at trend data, making sure that we're looking at where we have improved, where we have stalled, where we have possibly regressed.
I think a part of what might help us with that here is that this agenda really didn't lend itself to it, but we have those questions that we came up, those 3 questions under each topic, which sort of asks that, you know, where are we at? What more do you need? What more information would you need to come up with how to go forward? And how can the board help the organization go forward?
Exactly what Joanna said about understanding like where we can actually support our staff in like shortcomings, for lack of better term, shortcomings, or where the holes may be. How do we create support on that? And that's like what can the board do? I think we can praise improvement, but unless we know there's gaps that need to be filled, there's not much the board can support on. And so understanding, is there gaps that we've spoken about hiring certain people for certain positions, and having those harder conversations is really important for the board so we can support and maybe say, hey, maybe we should hire somebody here and we deal with the HHBR investigators, because we still, you know, you came to us, and we knew there was a shortcoming in the pressure on our staff for that, but if we had not known that was there, that would have been not necessarily something we would have thought of doing. And so I think understanding that there's maybe shortcomings that we may be able to help and support in different ways is really important too. And no fault to anybody, that's the way it happens. And, you know, we're just trying to make sure we're doing the best for our students.
Just going back to your slide here, I like the top model on how you list everything would be reported. I don't know what last year's schedule looked like exactly, but I assume it was just like, here's the goal, here's what we did to meet it, and then we got those reports.
You got those reports, yeah.
I like the other model better. So the HRS level team twice a year, and then the 3 academic and behavior reports.
Yeah, I think we need something for community engagement, because that's not covered in HRS.
Yeah,
So we'd have to do something there.
yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I feel obligated to is because the board's adopted these goals, reporting back to the board in some form on the goals.
Would there be a problem with doing the HRS level reporting and then, you know, in absence of something for community engagement, doing the old style reports of this is our progress on the community engagement?
Yeah, no, that we could definitely do that. So what I'm saying, some sort of augmentation, yeah. So that would be fine, at least in my mind, but that's the important piece.
Anyone else? I too like the high reliability example for how to get reports. I think if we're striving to be a high reliability school, we should use the lingo to make it work for us and help us understand it.
And look at it through the lens of what our goals have been.
I think one of the things we'd have to do, especially, and we're gonna have to try it out, like when we give you the report, here's the goals that this report's giving. If we do level 1, it hits a lot of the goals. So here are the goals that it's hitting. You see the indicators in there within that.
I think both of those models do show, have an opportunity to document process improvement. You know,
Yeah.
like, where we at, what do we want, what have we done, and where do we want to go? So I think, Charlie, you may be right that we need both versions to, some of both versions to actually show what we want to see. So there's some marching orders, go do it twice, one the other. Perhaps as a starter, you could pick one aspect and do both, one goal or one.
What I would do is build out, I mean, that's why I kind of heard Milda was the HRS with something for the community engagement
Yes.
along with the behavior,
Right.
the behavior and academic data that we do 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, not to do it redundantly, but
Yeah.
it seems like HRS hits all of our goals except for one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie, I kind of just stated what you said.
Is that good with everybody?
I mean, how's the board feel about that plan? We'll have an opportunity to react to it.
I'll put it together and give you a schedule for next week.
If there's something we don't like or want to add or subtract something, we can
Yep.
give our feedback.
Okay,
Okay, you have what you need on that?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is old business. So the item is Vermont Education System reform status and update. You have attachment 7A in your packet, and Bill is going to take us through this. Let's hold on here for a sec. The building trade, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
decide. The building trades one, how long do you think that will take in comparison? Because we could flip the order to accommodate.
30 minutes, depending on questions.
Yeah.
Well, they're both going to take 30 minutes, I think, though, right?
Yeah.
So let's keep it the way it is, sorry. Sorry, Steve, thought we could let you out, but.
Okay. The statewide merger study that's happening, that was part of Act 170. I got it down to 4 pages. I will say there was AI help in this, and then 2 other superintendents. So I actually noticed tonight reading it, I thought I caught all as it started with 2 other districts. There's on the bottom of the first page, it says 5 towns. It should say 3 towns in that last bullet. One thing I missed, but we were working on this together. We all knew we had to do an explanation instead of giving the law to our boards. And so really, there are suggested groupings for facilitation for merger talks, but the facilitator for each region has the final say into what the merger configuration talks are. So it's not, the legislature gave suggestion. This board could vote to say, we want to go somewhere else than what the facilitator says, and then they have to abide by that. And that's important for our conversation later, but I want people to kind of understand that. By September 15th, this board must identify at least 1 board member for a merger study committee. And I'll talk more about later. I've had conversations with John Tegg and what's happening in Franklin West, because that's a suggested partner. I'll just say it right now. They have 3 school districts within Franklin West: Fletcher, Georgia, and Fairfax. So they've elected 1 person from each board, so they have 3 members. John and I had a conversation, I've talked with Nilda about this, that I'm recommending to you pretty highly that we have 3 people from Maple Run. And John, I think that would be really fair. It just kind of levels it. There used to be in Act 46, and under the statute, when there was merger talks, you have to have the merger configuration based on proportionality of voters, registered voters. That is not the case. Act 170 took that away. So there is no proportionality in merger committee building. The facilitators, which they've hired the lead facilitator, they haven't hired the other 6 facilitators for the state, are supposed to start. We're supposed to finalize membership on October 15th and start merger discussions then. So really, the big piece about this is to come together, and probably the aspect that's going to be the most critical but still hasn't been figured out by the legislature is, how will the new funding formula impact with funding per student? Because with the foundation formula, there's so much money that goes to the district per student, and it's really what are those weights going to be for different student characteristics. So that is not known yet, but that's going to be a big piece of the merger committee and the discussion of how they want to, what they propose to go forward. The other things is to do an asset analysis, and I think that's what they're looking to do this fall. Committee members must be standing school board members. So if someone resigns from the school board and is on the merger committee, they can't keep their seat. The board needs to elect someone else to do that. That was different than what was in Act 46. And there must be public engagement in the towns to have this happen. The biggest thing is that it's not just about shared services that they're to study, but how they look at the strengths and challenges, and really what will happen to the schools for their funding via these and new foundation formula. If the recommendation is unanimous, it goes right to the state board. If it isn't unanimous, the facilitator has to write the counter as well as the majority and the minority, whether it's if it was approved to go through or not approved to go through. And you'll see on the 3rd page, there's a whole bunch of dates in a table there. By next September, there needs to be a report written about what's the final report and if there's a recommendation for formation of a new union district. You'll see by December 1st, the Secretary of Education reviews it, it goes to the state board, and there are votes on March 7th, 2028 in every district to whether there should be merger or not. And if that merger passes with what's called necessary districts, and I'll just remind everybody, a necessary district is, if say there are 5 districts and 3 of them are necessary, it must pass in all 3 for that merger to happen. Let's say the other 2 are advisory, and one district votes to join and one votes to not. The one that votes to join that's advisory would come in. The one that doesn't vote to come in would not have to come in, but it wouldn't sink the merger. If there were 3 necessary districts and one voted not to join, the merger would fail. So it's really key what are necessary and advised, and I'm just going to be really clear about it. When we look at Franklin West and Maple Run, there's one district in Franklin West that is pre-K through 12, and that's Fairfax. Georgia and Fletcher have tuition, and that's the big thing the legislature couldn't get themselves through, is like, how do we deal with the tuition towns? So they pushed it back into the mergers. So it might be that those towns, I'm not saying it should be, and I'm not recommending that it should be, but it might be that those 2 towns were advisable. If it was recommended to go merger, which might be Maple Run and Fairfax, if they come in, but it wouldn't sink the merger. And that's my example. Mm-hmm. We could say the same for Bakersfield, Sheldon, any of those tuition towns. They're the harder ones to figure out. The agency's paying for the facilitation up to $10,000. Anything above that, an incurred cost. And when we had our legal fees just for merging Maple Run, I haven't gone back to look at what they were, but I remember in a district that I was in, we spent a lot more than $10,000 in legal fees. I don't know how easy it was here in Maple Run. And that you cannot leave districts that have an ADM under 750. You can't have orphan districts. And the other thing that we have as a big asset for ourselves is that we already have over the required minimum of 2,000. We have about 2,300 students in the 3 towns, and then the rest are tuition students. So.
Explain that part again.
So if there's a district that, let's use real live districts, and I know Fletcher's 190 kids. They cannot be left orphan because they're under 750. Georgia has about 850 or 890, somewhere in that. I'm not reading my data that I just gave you on paper. If they were to be by themselves, they could stay by themselves, or the state board could push them into something. And then the last page, I gave you my thoughts, which is I think we should join, the merger discussions openly. I will tell you there's a discussion happening about all of Franklin County being in a merger committee. So I need to know where this board stands on that, if that's something you're interested in. I actually have a survey that came to me Monday. I'm supposed to be back to them, I think yesterday. They were on it right away of like, what's your board talking about? We hadn't even had the conversation, so I wasn't willing to submit, at least until we got through tonight. But the Act 170 are suggested groupings with Franklin West. I will say that I know that there's some desire from some other boards to talk about having all of Franklin County come together and figure out what might be the right configuration. It doesn't have to be all of Franklin County, but have it be a discussion where everyone's around the table and a facilitator. I said in that second paragraph, I think that this board's done some tremendous work on our district mission, vision, and goals. So that should be our way that we judge whether this helps us at a price. Does it further that work? Does a merger help us further that work for our students at a price our taxpayers can afford? And to me, that's the shortest way I can say it. How do we judge if a merger is good for us? And that, what's up on the wall, to me is my North Star of the work that I do every day. I said at convocation, like, for the mission, for me, the 2 key words in the mission are flexible and rigorous. It's not either or, it's a both. And that last phrase in the vision of tap into their love of learning, their being the students' love, not my love as a teacher. What are the students engaged, driven by? So I think if we can use that to judge how we're doing a merger, that will help us guide our decision making. And I said we start from a strong position, but we have greater than 2,000. We've been doing a great job of updating our facilities, and our student performance has been improving except for a kneecap. ECAP we've been remaining
VT-cap.
flat, which is our state assessment. What?
VT-cap.
VT-cap, I said kneecap, sorry, VT-cap.
VT-cap was so.
There's so many of those in my history. VT-cap. So, I did that pretty quickly, but I also wanted to set up a discussion or a conversation for all of you to have and ask questions, because I'm sure there's stuff we need to find out, learn.
How many districts and supervisory unions are there in Franklin County? If they were to do the whole Franklin County as one district, like how many?
So there are 7 school districts. We're in 4 superintendents, and the reason I say it that way, there are 2 supervisory unions and there are 2 school districts. There's Missisquoi School District and Maple Run School District. And then Franklin West, which is the supervisory union, has Fletcher, Georgia, and Fairfax. And then there's Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union, which has Enosburg, Richford, which is a K-12. And then I need some help because it's mountain towns.
Sheldon, Montgomery, Bakersfield, Berkshire.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if they're called the mountain town.
Mountain.
Northern Mountain Valley.
Northern Mountain Valley.
Thank you. I can never remember that. It's mountain something. But the 4, and they all have pre-K 8s and then tuition after that. So that's kind of the structure that we have right now. As I said, I know there's at least interest. And I will say all of us as superintendents have been saying, we're willing to say what I just said, there's interest, and where are our boards at?
No, who decided at the outset that it would be Fairfax and Maple Run?
That, you mean Franklin West, that came
Yeah,
from the
Franklin.
legislature. That's in Act 170,
Okay.
yeah. And then they put together Franklin Northeast and Missisquoi.
And when you say that everybody you're talking about having every district or whatever.
There's interest in saying, can we have the facilitator have everyone at the table to talk about, is it 1 district, is it still 2 districts, is it maybe primary and majority come together and something else happen? Not with any set end, but having that type of a conversation of what's right for Franklin County.
Do you know how the other superintendents feel about this?
I know how they feel about, I know how we feel as the 4 of us. I can't say that we can all speak for our boards. The 4 of us are in favor of us all.
No, I meant the superintendents.
The
only,
superintendent, yeah, that's what I'm just being really clear because of the recording.
Yep.
That we're pretty much in favor of us all trying to sit down, not determining that it's 1, but that we have the conversation of what are the possibilities and what's best for our students in Franklin County. And we think it's worth the conversation. With no predetermined, we're trying to go for 1 or we're trying to go for 2 or.
I think it's worth the conversation. When we had the conversation with the legislators was it this summer, I feel like? I don't remember.
Yeah,
One of
it
these
was this past December.
It just feels so long ago. Having that conversation with everybody around was, I think, very helpful. And I think having all of us at the table to see what the best is for our community, because this is all our community. We have a lot of kids who are non-tuition kids come in, tuition kids come in from other towns in Franklin County. I think having the conversation with all of us at the table, trying to decide what's best for us, I think it's better than having the legislator coming in telling us what's best for our communities. So I think it's great for us to be personally, my opinion is to be at the table, see what happens, and like you said, we don't have to decide in 2, 1, it can end up being whatever it is. But as having the conversation as a group, I think is really important.
Agreed. We have just Franklin County alone, it's just a transient population. A lot of families go from one school to another, all within Franklin County. So, I mean, it makes sense to definitely come together and look at the pros and cons.
Are these committees formed of, is it just the people we appoint, or are the superintendents involved as well?
We'll probably be at the meetings, but we're not, and we'll be involved in probably data gathering, but I don't think we don't have a voice at the table of what direction to go. And I will say, from going through Act 46, the boards have to own this process. I will tell you, I'm very gun shy from my own personal experience. And I cannot be the one leading this for you. I will gather whatever you want. I will give you whatever you want for information. I'll be glad to tell you what I think. But the board has to own this process because you have to be the ones to sell it to your community. I think that's what was successful. And know that you were here, were you the only one that was Mildy the only one was pre-merger? Joanna, were you on the board?
I'm sorry, I was, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I think the communities for the communities to be in favor of this, the board has to own it.
Yes, but the board, unlike last time, I don't know that the board didn't own it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was definitely straddled. But I don't know. I have lots of thoughts about how it went down the first time. I'll just put that.
I think the only way you're going to really sell a merger to the community is if you promise that it's going to affect taxes over time, because that's ultimately the goal, right? From Governor Scott?
From the governor's,
Merging?
From the governor's position. I haven't heard that out of everyone
Yeah.
in the legislature.
It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just telling you what I've heard. I mean, I hear different pieces out of the same party. So I don't know that it's a party piece.
I think that's definitely the thing that's on most people's minds.
Right, I think so too, yeah.
Well, I hope what's also on people's minds is just equity behind education, right? And that all of our students within Franklin County, let alone the state of Vermont, should all be receiving similar education and similar quality and, equity education. So, so that's pretty important. I can imagine that people have opinions about Maple Run going with Franklin West and Franklin Northeast and Missisquoi being together. That I imagine stirs up a lot of feelings for people economically.
So next steps,
Next steps are if the board so chooses, is to need at least one member for the merger committee.
that's on our agenda for the next
That's for the
meeting.
next meeting. That's really the next step, because I need to be able to report to the lead facilitator, David Younts, who's doing that work, who the committee members are from Maple Run.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
I said I just need to report to David Younts, who's the lead facilitator, by September 15th, who the committee members are that the board has appointed.
And that person sent an email to school board chairs too.
Right, it's the same one. It's the same survey. I was going to talk to you about that, filling that out after tonight. But this discussion's helped me a lot in trying to fill out that survey.
Right. Okay, any questions that we need to know the answer now before we proceed? Okay, if any questions come up before the next meeting, and we need some information regarding whether or not a person is thinking about being on that committee but wants to know this or that, Bill Schweig. Thank you. Thank you for that participation also, I appreciate it. And Bill, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. The next item is the NCTC building trades building update. And attachment 7B has a memo concept drawings, and we have Bill and Leanne here ready to speak to the matter. So let's do that. Who wants to start?
I'm going to start by just doing a little bit, then have Leanne, have Steve or Lisa help you in any way. Set some context, but we talked to you last year about the building code issues that we have in the current building trades building, and that we can't use the second floor anymore. And that we've been working around that, but also that part of the building is on another property. It's the shed part, so it's not the main part of the building. And that the space that we do have for the lab is much, much smaller than what's, is it recommended or required?
Recommended.
Recommended through the standards for technical centers, and I'm sure my colleagues will talk about that. So we've been doing some work in the past year, and I know Steve and his advisory committee's been talking about it a lot. And so really kind of, I'm gonna let Leanne take it over and have anyone you want join you, but talking about kind of where we're at with the program and give you some context about the program. And I tried to do some of that in the memo, but she can do some more of that as well.
Yeah, Bill and I talked about all the information that you might want to hear about the Building Trades program. And again, I want to introduce Lisa DeRocher and Steve Allard, who are vested in this project, and also Building Trades and NCTC. And of course, Becky behind me is also vested, but not as invested as these two. So in the memo, Bill pointed out options, and one of the options was to travel off of campus. And he pointed out that there's challenges with that. When you have a program offsite, you lose the supports that are in schools, like the nurse and the special educator. And with us specifically, we are challenged with a schedule that isn't ideal. So our students, we start school at 8 o'clock, and our students from MVU come 20 minutes later. And so being off-site, we would need to travel there, we would need to travel back with a bus, dropping students off at NCTC first, or going to building trade site first, and then going to NCTC. So just wanted to spell out the challenges with an off-site opportunity. Currently in our space, aside from the ADA challenge, it was a building that was built in the 70s. I think we determined it was 71. And then there was an addition that was made and created, where you helped build it, right, Steve?
Oh, it was multiple editions.
Multiple editions. So it was then built around the original building. And so currently when you have students in the building, you don't have a 360 view of all the students. So there's like different pockets and holes where students are using dangerous equipment. So it's not an ideal space. And then you heard that we lost the upstairs. So that was almost double the square footage that we had. As Bill shared with you, the state recommendations for the Vermont School Construction Planning Guide and standards for current ed centers is that each student is to have about 225 square feet. So obviously we're not, taping off that amount of square feet for each student, but for safety reasons and to move about the cabin safely, we would want that amount of square feet. So if we followed those guidelines, we would need a total of 3,600 square feet just for one class of 16 students. So one class of 16 students. We currently have a Building Trades 1 program, a Building Trades 2 program, and we also have an electrical program, which I'll share with you in a little bit. So the current building that we have on the first floor is just about 3,500 square feet, and that's all the chopped up space. And then we would assume that counting the upstairs, it would be about 7,000 square feet. So just, if you need me to repeat numbers at all, just let me know. I know I'm a lot at the moment. So I shared with you that we have 2 building trades classes. So currently how the format works, because our building trades 2 instructor has an offsite project. He's building a house on, is it Mason? Lower Walden Street. You never get that street right. So Steve travels with the students. He takes a bus. It sits 14 students plus the driver. So we can't have any more than 14 students. He drives the students off to the house, and they unload and they start building. If he didn't have that project, he's tasked with finding projects around the area. in proximity, knowing that you're traveling to the space. So we don't want to travel very far because time is so precious. Otherwise, he's restricted to building sheds in the parking lot, right? We've got like 5 parking spots allotted for sheds at times. Luckily, he doesn't have to do that, or he hasn't had to do that in the last 2 years. So we would want to make sure that building trades 2 students and 3 students have a more elevated level of learning, and building a house is ideal. What else can I share with you? So I'm going to share a little bit of data with you around our building trades enrollment. So I'll start with 24-25. We had a total applications of 58 students. In 25-26, it increased to 60 students, and just last year we had 67 students apply to the building trades 1 and 2. That's just the level 1 class. Information you should know is that the students come as sophomores, and they're program completers as juniors. So if they start as a sophomore, they go into building trades 2 as a junior. Historically, they had an option to come back and be a building trades 3 student and work on more complicated projects. We had to shut that down last year because we didn't have space for them. So we pushed them out to work in the community, which our community loved when we could find the placement. But we just didn't have the space for them because we had so much interest with our first years, and the attrition of students leaving after level 1 was non-existent. They all returned. So total students that were in the building for 24-25 was 78. Total students in the building at 25-26 was 69. And the total students in the building, including our electrical program right now, which is not housed in building trades, we found a temporary spot for them, is 83 students.
Can you say that one more time, all 3 of those?
Yep, so in 24-25, we had 78 students, counting all the building trades. 25-26 was 69. And then 26-27 is a total of 83 students, counting our electrical. Because we're talking about a trades space, right? We want to keep them all together. So we are really moving from building trades to trades. What questions do you have at this point?
Can I just add a couple of things?
Yeah.
And Steve, add in this, because you and I have had these discussions, but it's great to have the house we have in Lower Weldon. That's taken a lot of work with the city to put that together. But one of the things that a lot of other tech centers do is build double wides. And that's what we're trying to get into so that there's consistent. I know you told me there were many days this past year where you couldn't work outside.
Yeah, I mean, the weather was just too cold, and we got a lot of snow, right? So every morning we would show up, and it's just my morning class is just shoveling. So they're losing that hand skill time of actually being taught and doing the lessons. So it's been a learning curve for sure.
And that's one of the pieces of trying to get to this recommended space. And what you'll see that they're attached documents there, work that Steve and the advisory group has done with Laz Kangas to come up with a concept on it.
What are the numbers for those 3 time periods from MBU students?
The numbers just for MBU students? I don't have that segregated. I can get that.
Okay.
Anecdotally, Steve, do you have an idea of MBU student participation? Would you say a quarter of our students are MBU?
Yeah, probably a quarter. We are also getting a little bit higher numbers from Fairfax as well.
We do have students from Fairfax that come to our geometry and construction program. So when they're when their assigned technical center doesn't have a program that's offered that they want, then they can come to another technical center program. That's it. So just some other data around the great things around building trades and construction trades is we have the skilled trade signing day that started in 2025. And so that was an opportunity for all of our advisory board members and business and industry to sign on students with a contract to say, hey, come work for us. We're invested in you. So in 2025, which was our first signing day year, we had a total of 14 students who signed a letter of intent with business and industry, and 7 of those were from building trades. And And then just last year, our numbers increased from 14 students who signed on to 31, so it's really doubled. And then 15 of those students were also from building trades, so it was a variety of trades. So it just shows that value that the community has in us. And, that was Franklin County and Chittenden County sign-ons. Was that your question?
That's awesome. No, my question was, how many, and you may have already said it, so if I missed it, I apologize. How many students were not able to join the trades for each of those years? Did you,
So,
I think I heard you start,
yep, so are you asking about like students that were waiting?
like you had 78 and 24, 25. My
Yeah.
question to you is, how many students were not accepted just because there wasn't space?
Yep, so the data I'm going to give you is the data that happened at the start of the school year. And the reason why I want to share this is because we typically tell students in end of February, early March on whether they've been accepted or not. And so as a high school student, you'll get your letter and it will tell you whether you're accepted or not, or sometimes we need more information. We need to wait to see if your behavior improved, or we need to wait to see if your attendance improved, or if you didn't have a good grade in a class, we're going to check in with you later. So oftentimes what happens is students will disappear. They'll be like, oh, you know, I'm no longer interested, or you know, the numbers can change. So the numbers I have here are at the start of the year, which will be lower than if they were in March. So currently, in 24-25, we had 3 students that were waitlisted. In 25-26, we didn't have any that were waitlisted. And then this past year, we had 4, and that would be just for building trades 1. And just again, I want to point out that we were not able to allow the third years to come back because we didn't have space for them. And we wouldn't have that data for electrical yet.
The other thing I do want to add is, I would say maybe around shortly after the letters go out where the students are notified that they're waitlisted, word does get around. So the students say, well, I was waitlisted, oh, so was I, and so then they actually withdraw themselves. So our waitlist numbers are high at the beginning, so you may have heard we had waitlists of 15, 20 kids, but then eventually they said, well, I'm not going to wait around anymore, so I'm taking myself off the waitlist. Therefore, we also have lower student count.
To help with what Lisa just shared, students that pulled themselves out no longer interested, 24-25 were 10, 25-26 were 4, and this past year were 6. So they're on a wait list, they're like, oh, I'll go to this program, or I'm just going to go back to my high school and do X, Y, or Z.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yes. You might remember in the spring, I presented to you some data. So there are accountability measures that were required by the federal government to share. So what we didn't share was the disaggregated data around each program placement. We gave you an overall placement, and so that is called the post-secondary industry placement. And Bill and I were talking about college placement versus career placement. It doesn't pull it apart. It just gives us the total of graduates who are in post-secondary education or advanced training, military service, Peace Corps, or employed in the field. And in 2023, 96% of the students were placed. In 2024, 100% of the students were placed. And then in 2025, 95% of the students were placed. So they're finding employment easily. All right, this is my favorite part. We're talking about sharing some student stories, and let me know how my time is doing. As I said, 30 minutes, and I want to keep to that. One of my favorite stories is about a student that was finishing up his junior year, and he wanted a summer co-op, and we got him a job as a laborer for a company in Cortland Construction in Milton. And he was basically like digging ditches and, sort of supporting the folks that were moving the machinery, because he eventually wanted to learn how to run a bucket loader. Well, it turned out to be a federal project, and that student was paid over $40 an hour as a junior, at the end of his junior year. And it had to do with the Davis-Bacon Act. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. That's a federal pay standard that requires higher locally prevailing wages on government-funded construction projects. And we have another story of a student who worked for ECI, Engineering Construction Incorporated, and he co-opted his whole senior year. And he ended up working at the Burlington Airport under the same under the same act. And he was making over $60 an hour. At 18 years old, he's making $100,000. 18 years old. But Steve's very proud.
Easy over there.
Awesome, huh?
We do have a student that ended up going to Vermont State University. He got a bachelor's degree in construction management. He's currently working as an engineer foreman for Farrington Construction in Chittenden County. When this student came to us, he had no idea. Like, some kids are like, I want building trades. And I shouldn't use a rough voice because we do have females in building trades, but he wanted building trades, and he got building trade. He didn't necessarily, this particular student didn't know what he wanted to do. He's like, I'm just going to try it out. And so this is a success story of a student that didn't have no hand skills with a hammer, no family history, like a lot of our students in Franklin County. He ended up being very successful, and he'll continue to go far. Last student story, last year, a recent female graduate went through our building trades program and then took our adult ed programming and took the welding class, fell in love with welding, and she ended up getting a job with Hayward Tyler. She co-opted with them her senior year as well, and she is so successful that the company sent her out west to get more training so that she could earn more certifications. Because in welding, there's hundreds of certifications you can earn, and of course, the more you have, the more marketable you are. So she's successful. And then some final stories is all three of our current staff members, educational support, and our professional teachers are all alumni of our building trades program. So Steve, Josh Robtoy, and we have Skylar James Levine that is working with us. Our electrical teacher came from Tennessee, so he is not an alumni. We also have an advisory board that's required every twice a year. Every program is expected to have an advisory board made up of business and industry. And Building Trades has one of the strongest advisory boards that there is. And made up of that advisory board is also alumni of our program. So we're talking plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, owners of construction companies, project managers, welders. I'm sure there's other professions that I'm missing, but they're very invested in building trades. It's more than a career; it's a community for sure. And then lastly, what did I want to share with you? I wanted to give you a statistic around retiring folks. So for every 5 retiring in the field, we only have 2 that are entering. And Steve, Lisa, and I were talking about a statistic that you got that was a little bit different. But that's what we found recently, is that we're just not pumping them in the field soon enough to take care of the professions that we need. I'm sure every one of you can attest to calling a plumber or an electrician and having to wait. And so this is a needed occupation. So as Bill had said, our ideal situation is to be able to build the modular homes. It would be one large building that would house electrical, building trades 1, building trades 2. Obviously, the electrical would have their hand in outfitting the modular homes with electricity. We would be hoping to support the housing crisis. It would probably only be 1 house a year we're expecting, but it's one more than we would have had rather than renovating. And then, we're just passionate about keeping kids on site. You were asking questions along the way, and want to give you the opportunity to continue to do that. And of course,
Leanna and I are talking about our goal tonight is to find out what other information do you need, but we'd like to get to a decision point of which way and trying to narrow these down, but trying to get to a decision point which way we're going, probably within the next 3 meetings, 4 max, because we'd like to have something in place in 2 years. And that's really aggressive timing right now. I just talked to Laz Skangas and he's like, yeah, he goes, if I put everything I'm doing on the back burner for Maple Run and put this up front, we could probably get to drawings by January to go out to bid. It's gonna take a year to 18 months to build. It's a steel building. It's not as complex as others. I mean, you know, Steve, but you're probably the best one to talk to about it, but
Yeah, I mean, it's just an open concept. We went up to Lamoille County to check out theirs because they build a modular home in 2 pieces, and they just truck it out, truck packs up, loads on a 50-foot trailer, and then they deliver it to the site, and then the students go to the site and do the final touches, finish the trim, put the roof together and whatnot. So that's kind of what we based everything off of, was because they lose no time to weather or anything. They walk in, they're ready to go, and they turn out some very good carpenters.
and there are other tech centers in Vermont.
Yeah,
They're
there's
the
also-
exact same.
Yeah.
You just, Lamoille's the closest.
Yeah.
And Bree, we have the money in the capital fund for this?
We do have the money in the capital fund, especially because the projects that we had anticipated to happen this summer, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in the financial report, but they had come in under from what we had anticipated, which I had shared with all of you earlier this year. So we definitely have the money. We had rolled in $5 million last year from the audited surplus, and then which will be coming in a few more minutes, but we have another $1 million that's going into the surplus this year, or estimated $1 million. So we definitely have plenty of money, yes.
And just to clarify that, we have money without touching any of our other, without slowing any of our other projects that we've already approved.
Correct, yes, yes. And with the state of Vermont, and the legislation, we do want to use up as much of our surplus as we have, not, like, definitely leaving some of a buffer in there in the capital reserve, but we could begin to start being penalized as taxpayers to have that much money in the surplus right now, or in the capital fund. Yeah.
Would the location where the building is being proposed disturb like the surrounding neighborhood at all, with like trucks coming in and pulling out double wides?
It'd be once a year that trailer came in, and then we also talked about it being like when school was out of session, because it's a big trailer, and I think it's just a few hours that it takes.
Yeah, it would only take a couple hours to move it out of there, and they would get it be once a year, and like Leah mentioned, that the parking lot would have to be empty, it would have to be after hours.
Yeah, Laz and Peter Garceau did some planning of the parking lot to make sure to get a 50-foot trailer back in there. That's a modeling of that.
And honestly, like, they've got the doors open and the saws going multiple times throughout the
Oh,
year.
yeah.
So in this case, you'd be inside, and I think it'd be less noise than what we currently have.
Yeah, we currently have to use up the parking lot to do projects, so we're listening to saws all day. So yeah, this would be closed inside.
Would it be good in the same location, and how would we make sure it's ADA compliant for our students? I know that was one of the issues we had with the grade.
Yep, well, that was part of Laz's job, was to make sure that it was ADA compliant, and it would be it's in the back by the gymnasium. So as you drive in, building trace currently is right in front of you, around the corner, and then it would be pretty much butted right back against the fence there.
So we would be taking up those parking spaces
Taking
with
up those parking
with the,
spaces.
so that would be just, like, if we're just being, like, transparent about the downsides, would be that we would, I mean, I don't know how many spaces, but we would be losing spaces, right? And that is an issue for us.
Yeah.
But I'm not suggesting it's more important than this. I'm
I know,
just
that's why I
asking.
said, what I know from Bill is that the ERP board
Yeah.
is,
They want parking.
they make sure the parking is
Yeah, make sure-
available for their local businesses so that they can continue to entertain their customers.
And our current thinking right now is to take down the building trades, build existing buildings there right now, and we'd probably turn that into parking. So we would lose some spaces. Do I know the aggregate number? I don't right now, but we would capture some there as well.
Yeah.
So you build up a new building and then tear down the existing
Yeah.
building?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, I mean, you don't have to, but that's kind of our thinking right now. It's probably the best way to say it. I mean, there are people that want that building, but several different people
I think that's the first time Steve heard that. It's like,
that want that building, but I mean. if we
There are
had-
other people who want the building, is that what
No,
you're-
people within the district that want it
yeah,
for something
can
else.
think of uses for it.
Can think of uses for it.
Okay.
But it's not ADA.
It's not ADA compliant, and we can't.
Like a fire safety building, like.
Fire science building.
Lisa and I have a lot of ideas, but Bill won't have it.
I've said no, because for me,
Well,
how can we have students in a place that's not ADA? And it's not the building itself, it's the access to the building. It's that parking lot.
And that's one of the reasons why we're here, is we,
Right.
we can use it, so.
How long has that building been in use? Roughly.
I want to say 70.
Yeah, 72, so 73, 74, I think.
Long time.
So 52 years.
Thank you.
You did all your brains.
I was gonna say that.
I use the calculator.
So,
Help me out.
for changing, you're looking for,
Should we continue, is there one, I don't know what the leaning of the board is, if, we should eliminate some of these, keep going forward on just the plans. But I would need action from the board to say, I need something in the next 2 to 3 meetings to say, are we moving forward on something? Because we need to move forward.
Move forward.
is there any opposition to moving forward?
I mean, we can't do nothing. Going off-site isn't gonna really work for other students that are coming. Sounds like we need a building.
We need a building.
And, sorry, I just want to be clear. Sorry. So, in the building,
Could you speak up a little, Chair?
sure, yes, I know, most people can't hear me. So, in the building that we would build, I just want to make sure that I'm not asking a question, that the information's right here. What would the square footage be of that building? I see the square footage for the leased building, but I don't know, would it suffice what you're looking for?
Yeah, Bill, I don't know if you're looking through that, but Laz was given the recommendations of what we needed for lab space, and he built that for us. Now, I can't tell you that there's exactly 225 square feet for every single student, but he said it is close.
So without the mezzanines, my rough math right now, it's close to 6,650 square feet without the mezzanines. And then there were classrooms on that first floor, and up top we were making storage. And he doesn't have the mezzanines, he doesn't say how many square feet there. I'm sure I could scale it off, but there are drawings that are attached in your handouts there that have the floor plan with the mezzanines, and then the floor plan below those mezzanines are classrooms. But I'm giving you the square footage overall that's listed, just for each lab space.
I'm struggling with these things.
So-
So Bill,
Yeah,
just to clarify my own understanding, you prefer, as the leader of that program, to have a new building built on that site. Is that correct?
In discussion with my instructors and the advisory member, that seems to be the best place for it.
And Bree has said that we have the money for it.
Yes, we do.
So why are we waiting?
don't need to if the board's.
I would like to make a motion that we move forward in that
I'll second
direction.
that.
Can we do that if it's not an action item?
Well, it's not an action item, Jack, so.
It's not, we're just talking.
One of the things that happened when we prepped for this meeting, Charlie and Bill and I, we looked at all these options, right? And it was either do nothing which doesn't make sense, buy a building, which also doesn't make sense, or lease the building, and for all the reasons you said at the beginning of your presentation, you're making that campus disjointed again. Yeah. You're waving?
No, I just have something to say after.
Okay. And then the other thing is to build. And out of those options, I mean, and considering the fact that we have the money, it seems like the most viable and sensible thing to do for protection.
Yeah, my only question was just making sure that it was going to meet the needs of what you're looking for, because there's nothing worse than like building something and then having your community come in and say, why'd they do it this way? Why'd they do it? You know, they said they needed this, and now they're asking for another add-on. So I just want to make sure that we are, you know, answering the need.
So is it that the motion be that we move forward and it includes, do the voters have to vote on it? Is that what you're saying?
No.
They don't have to vote on it, but Jack is not an action item tonight, so we can't do a motion. We can give a motion.
I've got the sense of the board.
Okay.
I got the sense of the board.
All right, so we can do it the next meeting.
Next meeting, we
All
can
right.
put on as action.
I will table my motion.
And I think there's no issue. Rita, do you have something you wanted to say?
All I wanted to say is because we have the money in the capital reserve, it does not have to go to the voters, and the board of directors can approve for this to happen. So, yes.
If we-
I just wanted everybody to hear that.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add that I'd want you all to hear, I know you're not going this way, but it's more for your education, is if we were to lease something past 3 years or purchase something, whether it be land or a building, it's got to go to the voters.
Right.
Sorry, my last comment, I know I'm talking a lot here, just from an equity point of view. So if, you know, here we are making a decision a little bit in a vacuum. Not that this isn't all important and, you know, a wonderful investment in our community, but if we're looking at, I'm asking, are there other projects that are important, that are of high need, that we have not yet done, that would potentially come before this one? That would just be something that I think that we should at least discuss before we, you know, go full into something. Just so we don't hear something, you know, 2 months from now saying, oh, well, we have this blah, blah, blah issue that needs $2.3 million and we didn't know about it before.
In my opinion, I think that this is a bigger student issue, whereas we have the facilities team that comes together with our clerk of the works and our architect, and we sit down and we evaluate all the different needs that the schools have. But I think that this one is more of a student issue where the students don't have the proper means, you know, right now, and to have the students first and foremost and, you know, their needs addressed, I think this would probably be the most top priority.
Right, we just have students in other schools as well, so I'm just asking, you know.
Right, yeah.
The other thing I would add, Joanna, we have a rough idea, we have more than a rough idea, we have a good idea where the capital fund is right now. This will not drain it. And that will be coming soon with other projects because we need to use that money for our buildings.
Okay.
And we've been looking at that as we're doing the work, as Bree just talked about, the team that does that work.
Okay, and here's my last question, okay? My second last question is, if we go full Franklin County, right? What, and I know this is a really big if and a really hard thing to probably, and I'm looking for an answer right now. Will we have enough capacity in this new building that we're proposing for added students? So here we are, right? We're about to look into this potential for consolidation within a whole county, let alone another school district, Franklin West. So if we were to bring them in, if we did choose to do it on our own land currently right now, would we be at potential for not having enough capacity?
What I can share with you is that per state regulations in career tech ed, each instructor can have 16 students. If they have a lab assistant, they can have 21 because there's added eyes. So I'm just giving just giving you numbers because you're asking.
Right, but if we reconsolidate yet again, then, I mean, all of our programs could look different, we could have more staff.
That's right.
So would the building could the building become obsolete, I guess is my question.
I think a lot of buildings in Vermont are going to become.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as you know, a smart aleck remark back. I mean, that's the problem we have. We have a $6 billion problem. that we're trying to fix.
No doubt, but we don't have control over all of that.
Right,
So we
yeah.
have control over the decision that we make about this particular project. And so I'm trying to get an understanding. I'm a visual learner, so I'm just trying to get an understanding. Are we like squeezing out square footage in back of the gym, and we can only eke out what we can eke out, and we'll be lucky to hit 6,700 square feet without room for expansion? So I'm just asking.
We are lot bound. I mean, that lot is pretty full.
Yeah.
There is a neighbor that would like to sell us something, but that would take an action of the voters.
Yeah.
I think another point is that we've been taking care of our buildings quite a bit in the last 6 years. So we're not in a situation where we have dire straits, oh my God, is it the tech center or, a new cafeteria is not in that status where both would be student-centric. Okay, so I think, once again, we have a sense of what the board wants. Bill?
Yeah.
And I guess we need to get this on the agenda also as an action item, and also get maybe a little more detail, not the next one, with Laz.
I think Laz has got some work to do with
Yeah.
Steve and his colleagues.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to get down to the details now.
Right.
So,
Okay.
all good. Thank you.
Well, thank
Three
you
of
for your
coming.
presentation.
Yes.
Thank you for being in.
Thank you for
Thank you
listening.
for coming.
Thank you.
Are you in the Allen Brothers band?
That was my dad.
I know, but I'm not. Oh,
No.
I know the Allen Brothers. Come on.
No,
I'm
I'm
not
not
here
in.
forever. Okay, I'm the only person in St. Albans that knows that his brothers had a band that used to
No,
play.
I know this.
You know, you're
I know.
there?
I used to live down the street from your great-grandparent Bowlers.
Oh.
Yes, I did on Brown Avenue. It's a tight community.
Well, one of my great-grandparents was my grandpa.
You don't look very young, so.
Everybody says that's why.
Okay, I
Let's
will
go with it.
St. Albans history. There you go.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're on to old business item C. So this is, the reflections on old business. So I guess I'd like to hear from the board on a couple things. Did you feel like you had everything you needed to talk about this, either in advance or tonight when you were given information? And if you didn't have something, what would it be that you would have wanted? Too many past participle there, whatever that's called. But one want to jump in?
Do you mean on Leanne's report? Or just on everything?
On the
general?
2 items under old business. Part of what we said at our retreat is we're going to reflect on the items on our agenda and see if we can make our agenda better, maybe get more information out to the board, get our questions answered before we make decisions. Like, for example, I really like the way tonight went because the whole presentation occurred about the tech center, but it's not an action item, so we got a lot of information. And then at a subsequent meeting, it can be an action item, and we don't have to rehash all this, right? Because we've gotten all that information. That, I think, is a positive thing. Anyone else?
I think Joanna's question about about looking at the building with an eye to you know, as if we had kind of 7A and 7B collide with, you were talking about the building and the lot and space, and if the district grows, do we have the space for that? And that'll be, as we go into the whole merger talk, that's going to be something that we kind of, hopefully we'll get a better picture as to, you know, what the area is leaning, but it's going to cause a little bit of cognitive dissonance for a bit, because we have the business of our district in front of us, with also the knowledge that in 2 years our district might be triple the size. And so that's going to be something that we have to kind of carry in the back of our brains and keep in mind without letting it interfere with the business that we immediately need done.
Right. Thanks.
So, my feelings on that, if I could say something, if there is a merger, there'll be more space because there'll be more land at other schools. I can't see a kid coming from the very far, like, Richford to come to that tech center because they have their own tech center. I mean, there are other,
Closer tech.
this wouldn't be the only tech center in the whole thing, is my feeling. I have the same concern being on the advisory board with the Collins Pearly, because they're all making plans, and I keep reminding that board that that building might be owned by 6 school districts or 7 or 5 or whatever happens. So, everybody will want their graduation at Collins, and they're all going, well, isn't this owned by BFA? They're all thinking it's just BFA. If this merger happens, Collins Pearly, so I have the same concern that Joanna was thinking of, but my rationale with that, with the tech center is that there's tech centers other places. But, it's like there are more 3rd grades other places, and there are more, high schools, and, everybody's not going to come to this particular tech center. But a thing like Collins Pearly is because it's kind of a unique thing. That'll be, the ice time and the graduations and all that kind of stuff, because it's
everybody,
property.
Everybody may not use it, Jack, but we hope to grow our programs. So does it have room for growth?
Right. Oh, you always have to think of that. You're absolutely right. So I didn't need to
No, it's a great
get up a
point.
whole new thing, but
This is what it's for.
the transformation.
I mean, we're in a unique situation because of Act 170, but I think it's our responsibility, our administration's responsibility to always be looking at that and looking at whether or not there are issues that need to be addressed that are going to impact, if student numbers are going to impact programs somehow. So yes, and it's their responsibility to keep it on their forefront, and our responsibility to ask them about it. Any other reflections?
I have a question. Can I just ask a question? I don't need an answer right now.
Sure.
Okay. So I heard something that sparked my question in this conversation, that in Act 170, that there's no proportionality in terms of board members, right? Is that what people heard?
For the merger committee.
For the merger, right. But when I looked it up, it said that Act 170 would be kind of replacing 46.
I don't know.
That's the way it's written.
Are you talking about within the Act 170 itself?
I guess so, yes.
It does make reference to 46, but 46 pointed to all the merger laws that are in existence that are already on statute. And in Act 170, they made some exceptions that were in the law already existing for mergers. in 46, they never stopped any of what's called the, I forget which chapter it is, it's subsection 700s, where they talk about district mergers that have been on the books for 30, 40 years.
Well,
And that's where the proportionality comes out of, is on what was there. In Act 170, they took away there's actually a piece within Act 170 where it said it didn't have to have, it took away the proportionality.
well, I would like to reflect that I would like at some point to discuss the proportionality within our own board in terms of mine and Mary Ann's half vote.
So that you'd have to look at your bylaws, but yeah. So is that what you're referencing, our bylaws from Maple Run?
I'm referencing what I heard about Act 170, and I was asking if it was relevant to the proportionality of how those bylaws were set up. Since it's going to be dismantled and we're going to be redoing something one way or another,
So
I just want to talk about it at some point. I don't need to
Okay.
talk about it tonight. I don't need an answer right now. I just want to discuss it at some point. And maybe I just need to educate myself further, which I'm wide open to.
Well, when you think of Act, what's it? What's the one that goes all together? Consolidation.
46.
46.
Okay, so when you think of 46, there was language in that final document that addressed issues like assets belong to everyone. There are a dozen things, as I recall, that covered a lot of that stuff, because there's going to be, in addition to this, I think there's probably going to be a couple dozen other things that we haven't even thought of yet that will have to be addressed, So keep that in mind, and I think you're going to have an opportunity to bring it up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to move on to new business. Quarterly financial report is attachment 8A, and just for information, this is FY26 quarter 4.
Yes.
And Bree's going to handle this one.
Yes, I am. So, Bill already stole my thunder and had me start off telling all of you that we're looking to have an estimated net surplus of a little over $1 million, which is amazing. But with that, $1.824 million that was allocated, that the board approved for capital reserve funds to be used, we're rolling that money into this year's expenses. So it would actually have been about $3 million that we would have had for a surplus, which was the same, more or less the same information that I gave all of you in the quarter 3 financial report. So with that, moving on to the expenses. So the expenses, you can see from the working budget and then the actual and encumbered expenses really line up very similarly. There were some personnel that we weren't able to hire throughout the year, obviously, and therefore some of the salaries and benefits came in a little bit lower from what our estimated working budget was. Flipping over to the on that first page, the operations and maintenance security, you'll see that working budget was a $6.7 million, but with me rolling in the capital, we came out to $9.3 million that we utilized out of those funds. And then with all of the grant funds that we had and our approved budget, our budget went up to about $79 million. And then because of that capital reserve money that we had, we spent almost $80 million out of the expenses. But then moving on to the revenues, we received more revenues than what we were anticipating as well. For instance, the investment income, we had an adjusted budget of $38,000. And because we had so much money in our checking account throughout the year, we actually received $283,000 in interest from our bank, which is absolutely amazing. Another thing to point out was the state transportation aid. I was anticipating about $610,000, and we received $883,000. So I have adjusted that for FY27 going forward as well, that, you know, we are anticipating more than like $700,000, I think is what I had budgeted for. With the IEP Medicaid,
keep that person.
Right?
Whoever's submitting that, keep them in court.
He is amazing. So we had a year where, you know, he was transitioning into his new role. So we weren't sure how much money he was going to generate. And he generated $541,000. And his goal for this year was $500,000. So he exceeded that, and, you know, super excited about,
What's their name?
his name is Joe Cataray. He was our accounts payable clerk.
Way to go, Joe.
So, you know, he's been with us. He's absolutely amazing. With consolidated federal programs, so the adjusted budget of $2 million is what we had given to us, but we actually had rollover money of over $1 million. So we were able to utilize that money as well. And we still have some more rollover money from the consolidated federal programs.
That's awesome.
And then the last thing that I wanted to point out of the discrepancies in the revenue is the extraordinary reimbursement for the special education. So we had budgeted about $2 million, and so far this year we've only received $822,000. One, I want to pride our special ed system, where we have moved we took a bunch of our tutoring program students that we were outplacing, and we were able to start up the LIFT program and put those tutoring kids in there. So we weren't paying the overage of the $66,000 for those students to be in that program. But also, I believe we might be receiving another special ed reimbursement, but that money will just go into the FY27 revenue that we're receiving this year. So all in all, our budget for the revenue was about 79 million, and we received 81 million, so that gives us that $2 million surplus. So with a $2 million surplus in the revenue, but then going over $1 million in the expense, comes out to that $1 million in surplus going into the capital reserve. That makes sense. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Perfect. And we have our audit in September 14th through the 18th, so we're excited and we're ready for it, and it's going to be very smooth, and it was a great year. Do you want me to talk about the capital reserve? Okay. Seeing as how I touched upon it a little bit. So when we had started FY26, we had $10 million in the capital reserve, and then with the audited surplus, we had another $5 million that went in there. The board had obligated $8.1 million for all the projects that we had going. So with that $15 million minus the $8.1 million, it comes out to about $6.8 million still remaining. Therefore, we definitely have enough money in the account to be doing this project for the technical center. And then with that also, we didn't utilize $2 million in this year's budget. So this money, this $6.8 million, is actually going up to the $8 million, or almost $9 million, because we rolled it in / absorbed it into FY26 budget. So, yes, Charlie.
Out of that $9 million, is that less the projects that we've already approved be paid from it, or is that $9 million for everything, like?
Everything else above and beyond, because
Okay,
I've already
so-
allocated that 8.1 million.
So like air conditioning and SATEC is not included in that?
Nope, that's allocated, right?
Yeah,
That, okay,
And
that was part of the
buy
8.1.
down property taxes from our capital fund is not included in the 9, or is?
The
Is it
voted,
9 million minus the buy down, or 9 million including the buy down?
I did not include the buy down.
Okay.
No, because that's coming in the FY '27, or
Oh,
it's
yeah.
within FY '27 budget.
I'm getting a year ahead
So,
of myself.
Yes.
And then you said earlier that there was gonna be like a tax or a fee if we like have too much money in the capital funds. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, when school districts, we're not people, when us school districts compile the money year after year, they don't want to see us hoarding the money, and that's how they're kind of viewing it. And even though we're working to, do our capital projects and do all that, they're thinking that school districts are overinflating their budget to then, hoard the money, stockpile it into their budgets or capital reserve funds. Again, that's not something that we had worked for or tried to do or anything like that. So after they do like a 5-year look back, and after 5 years, like the money that hasn't been spent from that 5 years can potentially be taxed, where the school district has to pay some type of imputed amount on it. And it's just to deter people from hoarding the money. So, yes, so that's why we're also trying to spend it, and that's why we obligated that $8.1 million to then offset and reduce that.
So that in theory won't be a problem for us because we're identifying projects that are using that capital fund, so
Correct.
we're definitely not sitting on a pile of gold there.
Correct.
and that's why you have to anyway, by what the voters approve, is the board has to approve projects. So when we had a motion to talk about the tech center, the appropriate thing that I was writing in my notebook is we need a motion for you to obligate funds from the capital fund
Yes.
for that project at the next meeting. So then that gives Bree the evidence if the state were to come to say, listen, we have a plan, the board obligated this, that's where we're at.
Right. Yeah, because then you as the board will then approve the contractors and all that, because it's going to be over the $40,000 threshold, for you to then approve who's going to be doing this work for us.
Okay.
Did you say what the percentage was? Like,
I don't know that, I don't, but I can definitely look into it. I don't believe we're there, but we're approaching the years of that look back period, so,
Thank you.
yes. Okay. I'll make a note to do that.
Okay, thanks, Bree.
Thank you.
All set? Any questions more? All right, we're going to move on to seniority 5. This is an action item, and we have attachment 8B. So I would like a motion to approve the side letter of agreement for seniority as will be presented, please.
I will make that
Discussion.
motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it, come on.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to discuss it. And Becky, you're going to discuss it with us. And lead our discussion. Please.
Sure. Our employee, Angela Fitzgerald, has accepted a position as the city school K-4 dean. It's the understanding at this point it's a 1-year only, and that means that her role as instructional coach is on a different scale than what the dean of students is. And we're asking that we maintain her seniority as the instructional coach, so she goes back to being the coach versus being the dean. Her seniority remains intact.
Is that straightforward? Everybody understand that? Okay, we're preserving her, basically. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion necessary? I'm seeing none, so we're going to take a vote on seniority letter attachment 8B, approving the side letter of agreement as we just discussed, as was just presented. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, board. All right, next item is item C under new business, just a officer agreement. This is another action item. It's attachment 8C. I would like a motion to authorize the superintendent to execute the 2026-2027 district liaison officer agreement. This is for discussion. I have a motion. Thanks, Charlie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Want me to do some presentation?
Yeah, Phil's going to take us through this.
So in talking with the city about our usage, and we talked about this when we were in the spring, we had, for the past several years, we've had 1.5 FTE of a DLO. And we can get down to, in working with the city, we can get to a 1.0 position, which is really Joe Popket, who's been our DLO. That would be without the officer. I think the board knows, but Paul Talley has joined our staff, and it's no longer with the department. So in working with them, the average salary for city police officers is $115,000. So you're seeing the total cost right there of $140,000. We are committed to lowering that next year, even further. We were trying to figure out how to do that and keep the appropriate personnel around that can work well with the students, because it's not just having a DLO, it's having the right DLO. And so Joe is that person for this year.
Right, so we're going from
1.5 to 1, and we're going to talk more for next year. And we're going to, Dominic and I said we start this fall, but I said I want the principals in the discussion because they know what they really need on site for when they need somebody. I mean, you all saw how the number of uses is not that high. So that's where we'll be able to get to this summer. And it would at 1.5, it would have been $192,000. Last year we paid $182,000 for 1.5.
So didn't it say 185?
No, if you look at, I included, I include last year's. It may have been 185 last year, John. I include last year's agreement just so you could see it. We're not planning to change any of the wording. What we would change it to be a 1.0 for 140.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Any other questions related to DLO agreement? I'm seeing none. Prepared to take a vote? All right, so we have a motion and a second to authorize the superintendent to execute the 2026-2027 district liaison officer agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. So we're now up to new business item D. Okay. Yes, D. Board members' reflection on new business. So I'd like to hear some feedback related to the new business agenda items and the information received, how it's presented, etc. Did you all feel like you got what you needed? Is there anything missing that you would like to have seen? Anything we can improve on when we give these reports in the future? I'm not hearing anything right now.
I thought all the reports were great. I
I
felt like I
beg your
had all the information that I needed. I felt like I had enough information going into the meeting before I even got here. It was all great.
Great.
I second what Jen just said. I especially love Leanne's presentation.
So, like I said at the last meeting, this reflections piece is a little wonky because it was kind of taken off the ground. So if you guys have any feedback you want to give me, please don't hesitate to send me a message or email and let me know how we could improve this process. Next item is other business warrants. So I am looking for a motion to approve the warrants.
I'll make that motion.
Is
I'll
there a
second
second?
it.
Was that a second?
Yes, Jen.
Thank you. Any discussion? You take a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the warrant, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify by saying no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Next item is the superintendent report. Bill.
Great. I'll be brief. It's been a week since we last were here. Very brief. It's just been a week. Students came back today. You all know that. I saw many of you as I was out and about. Lots of good things. If you hadn't heard, on Thursday, Keely Garceau was honored with the Superintendent's Leadership Award. She's done amazing leadership, especially Megan talked about the report cards. Keely, for the past 2 years, has been the leader of that group and really getting the common pre-K to both sides. So if you see her, congratulate her. She was the right person. As I said, we'll get you a copy of the State of Maple Run that we did at each building. Megan and I had a lot of fun doing that. I did want to let you know of 2 things that are happening. We did sign with the city to do the land swap, and that included $30,000 back to us. The garage that's out there, that Bree and I debate what color it is. I won't say what I think it is.
He calls it purple.
I don't call it purple, I call it green.
Green.
But,
Okay.
it's being taken down next week.
Yes. Cool.
It will, and then we're gonna be coming back to you with a proposal using that 30,000 plus some of ours money. We don't think it's gonna be a lot, to build a parking lot and have it take care of all the puddles and ice and hazards that we have out there.
Yeah.
Bree's been spearheading all that, so thank you, Bree.
Yes, so right now it's with the DRB for their designs.
Yeah, and it was the design that you saw from that chip. So,
Yeah.
and then we're going to be taking down the pool house as soon as we can. We were hoping to use it for something, but it's in such a state of disrepair. We're going to take down the pool house. It will stay level with a slab of the slab that's there.
What's the pool house?
Right by City School is the old city pool, and they took out the pool and filled that in, but we're going to take down the rest of the pool house. So.
Do you have plans for that space?
Nope. No plans. Just going to take it down, take out the fence.
Great tech center. Oh.
And your sticks and stuff?
There are people that think they have plans for that space, but
Right.
in talking with Stacy and a few other people and Josh, like, we're taking that thing down, and we found a way to do it. So we don't need any action from the board, but it needs to go.
It's great. I
Yeah.
have a friend that lives across the street. She hates it.
Yeah.
She has to look at it every morning.
So I don't know exactly when, because that's still being worked on previously in that as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we have to get the permit and get it scheduled. So. Just
That's all I have for you.
What else you got, Bill? Anything?
No, I said that's all I have. Good.
Yeah, any questions for Bill? Okay, next item is board announcements and reflections on the meeting. So if you haven't already reflected enough, there's another opportunity here to do that. But before we do that, there is one announcement or one sort of question I'm going to ask you. So we're scheduled to have a meeting next Wednesday, the 2nd. And then our next meeting after that would be the 16th. We have to have our committee, our merger committee meeting by September 15th. So the 16th is too late. So what I'm asking you folks is, would you like to meet the 2nd and the 9th, or the 9th and the 16th? So you get a week off, so you won't have 4 consecutive meetings, or 3 consecutive meetings. You could have the 2nd off, but then you have 2 consecutive meetings after that. What's your pleasure? When's actual Labor Day?
The 7th.
The 7th? Oh, okay. So, I mean, we can keep it like it is, that's not a problem. I was just trying to lessen the load a little bit because we kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, and.
Is there
everybody
any
had-
reason why we can't just pick somebody at the next meeting? Does it have to be 2 meetings from now?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
The reason why you're talking about moving up 2 meetings from now is because we need to pick somebody for the merger committee.
Right.
Is there any reason why we have to do it 2 meetings from now and not just next meeting?
So the way it's scheduled right now, the 2 meetings are on the 2nd and the 16th. The 16th is one day too late.
Right, and so
Yeah, I
Jen said,
got
can we
it.
do it on the 2nd?
So we could, oh, yeah, sure. We could do it on the 2nd, and then we could have a meeting on the 9th or the 16th. Yes, we could do that on the 2nd. I think folks are probably ready to indicate whether they're interested in being on that merger committee, so. Do you want to do that suggestion, meet on the 2nd as planned, and then move our meeting up currently on the 16th to the 9th?
No.
I think just keep it
Just
as
keep it
is.
there.
So we're going to keep it the way it is, the 2nd and the 16th, but we're moving the agenda item to the 2nd related to the merger committee. Well, that was fun. And I don't have any other announcements.
I just have an announcement. I don't know if people know this, I just found out, but if you have a kid who drives to BFA, they can park for free in the city parking deck. You just have to go to City Hall.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good find.
I really enjoyed the principal gatherings this summer. We attended many of them at St. Albans City School. I think Fairfield and Town School did them, and they were great. Loved it.
Yeah,
Kids were happy. It was great.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week. It's a great thing that principals really found it was working, so
It was
they
awesome.
kept doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? So items for future meeting. On 9/2, we're going to appoint the merger committee members, and we're also going to look at a draft board work plan.
Yeah.
We have no need for executive session, so I am stating that the meeting is adjourned, and the time is 8:07.